Well, one of those right things is not getting too close to Toney, as Toney languishes on the ropes. Now, even though Toney is hard to hit with the right hand, Peter has to throw it early to see if he can land it. But he's more likely to land a big left hook, the punch you have to throw often with conviction if you're going to beat James Toney. The most devastating hook Peter has thrown came when Jeremy Williams let his right hand dangle, and Peter cranked up a monstrous left hook. Toney will throw some counter right hands, and Peter would love to repeat this scene tonight. Toney is best when he's counter-punching, and Peter will come to him. Toney has to just let that happen. Toney needs to keep that left shoulder turned to take away the right and make Peter beat him with the left. The countering combinations off the ropes will work, and no one does it better than Toney. Against Dominic Wynn, Toney rattled off 5 different punches in just 2 seconds, and it was a varied attack. This is the kind of hand speed and activity that could bedevil Samuel Peter in this fight.
If ever a non-title fight was significant for two men, this is it. And on a grander scale, a fight that could reignite the public's interest in the beleaguered heavyweight division. Huge punching Sam Peter turns 26 in 4 days, looking very pensive there. Ironically, Peter, not Toney, the big story at Thursday's weigh-in. As he breaks into a smile, the big story, and I do mean big, a whopping 257 pounds, 1 pound shy of his career heaviest, 14 pounds more than he was versus Vladimir Klitschko, his only loss. Are you surprised by this, Al?
I really am. You know, when Peter faced Klitschko, his inactivity and sometimes almost his inertia in that fight was a big issue and made us wonder about his conditioning. Now here he is, as you mentioned, 14 pounds more than he was against Klitschko in that fight. And I think this raises some serious red flags about how Peter's going to perform if this fight goes into the mid or later rounds. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, Robert Ferguson, his conditioning trainer, said, no, this is just the weight he ended up at. I swear to you, he's in good shape. Well, we'll find out.
You'll recall he had stamina issues near the end of the Klitschko fight when he was rocked in the 12th. The crowd will see him momentarily. He's in. 2-0 since the loss to Klitschko just under a year ago. Comes off a thunderous first-round KO of a 7-foot journeyman, aptly named Long. Peter was 256.5 for that, but Long is no Toney, and it would seem unlikely for a repeat of that tonight. Peter does have the one-punch KO power in both hands. The left hook equally as lethal, if not more so, than the signature right, but still major question marks regarding his boxing skills and the mental aspect of his game. And Toney will make you think, and he can make you look bad. A very religious, spiritual man who appears to be very loose. Grew up in Akwabam, Nigeria, watching Ike Abeyabuchi, Duncan Dokawari on TV. One day the national team came to his school to train. The coach put him in with an experienced guy. He flattened him. And Peter knew from that day forward what he wanted to do. 96 Olympian, only 20 amateur fights, just not enough heavyweights where he grew up. From Africa to Las Vegas, where he now resides. Talk about culture shock. The ultra-experienced, always relaxed, supremely confident James Nathaniel Toney, an adopted Los Angelian by way of Ann Arbor, Michigan. He will hear it from the crowd. Came in at 233, not exactly svelte. However, it was 4 pounds less than his career-high 237 in the draw with Hasim Rahman. And consider that he was 265 when he began training 6 weeks ago. He is all business as he makes the trek into the ring. And Al, on the subject of training, slightly altered this time.
Well, the weight isn't the major thing with him. He did a lot of road work for this fight. He hasn't done road work in a while. That could make a significant difference in how he performed.
Some mixed reaction there for James Toney, who hasn't lost as a heavyweight, yet surrounded by controversy. Won the title over John Ruiz, then stripped for using an illegal substance. Questions about his lack of conditioning when he fought Rahman, yet he remains resilient. Back here, just one fight away from a heavyweight championship. They don't know whether to cheer or boo, it seems. Toney, a genuine boxing phenomenon, who was 157 when he beat Michael Nunn for the middleweight crown in '91. He hasn't lost, as we pointed out before, since 1997, and has never been stopped in a career spanning almost 18 years. We're set for the numbers. Let's size them up as we go to the tail of the tape here at Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. And the two things that really jump out: Toney, who turned 38 last Thursday, 13 years older than Peter, and of course the weight. Somebody called this the melee at the buffet. A combined 490 pounds. Peter, as of Thursday, 24 pounds heavier than Toney, also 2.5 inches taller with a 5-inch reach advantage. And the key unified rules: no standing 8 count, no 3 knockdown rule. A fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round. If an accidental headbutt causes a fight to end within 4 rounds, it's a no decision. After 4 rounds, they go to the scorecard. So here at Staples Center in Los Angeles, California, we are getting ready for our main event. A WBC heavyweight eliminator between James Toney and Sam Peters, scheduled for 12. Set for the official introductions. We go up to our ring announcer, the classy Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you and welcome to the Staples Center here in downtown Los Angeles, as it's time for the featured bout of the evening, brought to you by Goosen Tudor Promotions, Don King Productions, and Duva Boxing, in association with Tycoon, Staples Center, and Showtime. This title unification and world championship elimination bout is sanctioned by the WBC President Jose Suleiman, Supervisor Roy Van Putten, the NABF Supervisor Joe Dwyer, the IBA President Dean Chance, Supervisor is Norm Longton, and the California State Athletic Commission Program, the Chief Armando Garcia. Our physicians at ringside: Dr. Paul Wallace, Dr. Richard Gluckman, and Dr. Robert Castagnon. Timekeepers at the bell, also keeping count of the knockdowns: Willie Arreola and Debbie Garcia. Introducing our 3 judges scoring this bout from ringside: from Braintree, Massachusetts, Dick Flaherty; from Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, Alejandro Rochin; and from Dickinson, Texas, Gail Van Hoy. Introducing a 3rd man to the ring, the referee in charge, from West Covina, California, Raul Cais Sr. All right, fans, here we go with our main event of the evening. 12 rounds of boxing in a WBC heavyweight elimination bout and NABF and IBA heavyweight championship. And now, ladies and gentlemen in attendance and boxing fans joining us around the world, live from Los Angeles, it's showtime! Introducing to you first on my right, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing light blue trunks, fighting out of Las Vegas, Nevada, by way of I.HW.2006.09.02, Nigeria. He weighed in at 257 pounds with a record of 26 wins and 1 defeat. He has 22 big wins coming by way of knockout. Ranked the number 3 world heavyweight contender by the WBC. Please welcome the hard-hitting NABF heavyweight champion known as the Nigerian Nightmare, introducing Samuel Peter. And his opponent across the ring on my left, fighting out of the red corner, wearing green trunks with white and black trim, fighting out of Sherman Oaks, California. He weighed in at 233 pounds with a record of 69 wins, 4 losses, 3 draws, 1 no decision. He has 43 wins coming by way of knockout. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the former IBF middleweight, super middleweight, and cruiserweight champion of the world, ranked the WBC number 2 heavyweight contender. Please welcome the IBA heavyweight champion, introducing James Lights Out Toney. Once again, here's our referee in charge, Rokai Sr., now to give instructions.
Over here, gentlemen. Okay, gentlemen, I give you instructions downstairs. I expect you to obey my commands at all times. Protect yourselves at all times. Remember, the opportunity of a lifetime is here. Take advantage. Now remember, both your trunks are high, so right here is good on both of you. Shake hands, gentlemen. Good luck to both of you.
James Toney is called old school. Will he take Sam Peter to school tonight? The KG Toney knocked down only twice in almost 18 years, 77 fights. Last time, 1994. Never seriously hurt, but he's never fought. Rock solid, thick set, Sam Peter. The hardest puncher Toney's ever faced as a heavyweight. Will Peter be the first man to KO the elusive one? He says repeatedly he'll walk through Toney. Just for the record, it seems improbable. Peter has 8 first-round knockouts, 15 of his 22 KOs within 2 rounds. The early going of this fight, probably the most critical time for Toney, don't you think?
Absolutely. You couldn't be more correct, Steve, because he's going to taste power potentially that he's never tasted before in his life. And how will he react to it if Peter is able to get to him?
Toney will look to frustrate Peter, make him work, tire him out, make him expend energy. Will Peter's extra baggage make Toney's job any easier? The prevailing opinion, if Peter doesn't get it done fast, Toney will make him pay. General feeling, Toney's best bet to win is on points. Peter by KO. But definitely a fight that takes on the feel of anything can really happen. But it would be a bit of a surprise if Toney won by KO unless it was late. And a big part of the allure, Peter could be way behind, but he has that great equalizer. One punch knockout power, and that is something you've won.
So far in this match, Toney is initiating more of the action, and I think he got hit with a nice left hook by Peter, but came right back.
And Peter is looking for the early endings. No question about it.
And here's where we expect Toney to be a lot, against those ropes, trying to lure Peter in so he can land those counter punches.
And Toney, of course, one of the best at fighting off the ropes. He uses the ropes for support, but he's got to be extra careful against the power of Peter. Toney pecking away. So far, most of the action in the center of the ring.
The Toney left hand below his waist, and Sam Peter, I'm sure, is thinking, I've got to be able to land this right hand. But no, look at 3 of them miss. Although Peter's getting a little more done here in round 1 than some might have anticipated.
Pushing him back with the left. Rockman had some success with the right against Toney, and now Sam Peter is trying to land those right hands, but it is difficult against the rolling shoulder James Toney.
A close first round.
Freddie Roach concerned that Toney has become more hittable with age and the extra weight, although he did come down a little here for Peter.
Not exactly svelte, though, for this fight. The jab of Toney, a very good weapon so far in round one.
We haven't seen the monstrous overhand clubbing type right yet by Sam Peter. He's got to straighten those out. He tries the right there, but Toney able to duck away from it. There's a right hand that lands by Peter.
Deep breath. Okay. Nice round, James. Hey, yo.
Fix his trunks before he comes.
Yes, sir. Okay, James. Just keep using that jab, okay? Keep that baby with that jab. You can't walk through that jab. There's no way. That up jab's working beautiful for you, okay? All right? Now set everything else up, okay?
Get warm, baby.
Just warming up, son. Just warm. Deep breath. Nice. That's it.
Keep you hard.
Beautiful. Okay? You're making a miss, baby.
Come on, son.
Well, nice and calm in that corner. That's Toney working downstairs to the body, making Peter miss with the left hook and making him miss with the right. And that's the signature Toney move at this point in his career. A right hand that misses by his opponent and a right hand that comes back.
Freddie Roach is very happy with Toney's jab in that first round. Toney with a big right hand. It landed upstairs, and how about that dance step afterwards?
Now that you don't see from James Toney too much. He's feeling his oats.
So a big start to the second round by James Toney. Welcome to Dancing with the Stars.
Yes.
And that beautiful shotgun jab by James Toney. See if he follows it up with a right hand. He's just pecking away with that jab.
You know, it's still early in the fight, obviously, but we've seen Toney in the center of the ring more than we normally see him. Usually he plants himself on those ropes and counters off there, but he's been good in the center of the ring.
Good left hook followed by a right by Sam Peter. Back comes Toney with a counter punch. Right hand, another right hand by Toney, a left by Peter. So we've got some good two-way action here. And a very good pace for two large men.
Every time Peter throws the right hand, Toney wants a counter with his own. It's still hard to believe. I think of James Toney, and he started at 157. Now he's in there with a guy 257 and not getting hurt with punches, apparently. It's amazing.
And now Toney getting there first. He's usually the counter puncher.
Yeah, and it's rare for him to initiate too much action.
Another right hand, this time to the temple by James Toney, and then he regroups, resets himself, ready for more action. Peter so far showing that he's just too slow to react. Toney's too quick. And remember, Peter's 13 years younger. You really have to wonder about that excess weight as far as Peter goes. Peter with a nice right hand to the jaw.
Yeah, the difference in this fight so far, and again we emphasize so far, is the hand speed of Toney. There's a nice counter right by Peter.
And then Toney came back with a right hand over the top.
Now here on the inside, you would think the bigger man who just took a right hand, Sam Peter, would be bullying Toney around and using his weight and his power and his strength. It's not really working out that way.
One of the knocks, of course, on Sam Peter is he just looks for that one single clean shot.
Absolutely.
He's not busy enough. He doesn't throw enough punches, enough combinations, the jab, all the skill stuff.
10 seconds, gentlemen. Stop it.
All that pesky skill stuff.
And, oh, what moves by James Toney. Counter punching. And great defense, and then waves to the Sam Peter corner. He is colorful.
As long as he ducks, you throw. Listen up, listen up. combination. So keep throwing them. The only thing is you're still on your flat feet again. So you got to come up off there. You got to come off the flat feet and get up on your toes. All right? And you'll find.
What a fascinating exchange at the end of the round. Toney counter-punching as we expect. Peter throwing big bombs, not landing so much, but a body shot gets in. And the bravado of James Toney never ends. He would wave to Sam Peter after that, but there's the counter right. That's the signature move of Toney, and most of these missing. A potty punch gets in, but the rights and the lefts missing by Peter.
Very appropriate, as many of Peter's punches are waving by James Toney. And Toney with a straight right hand to the head of Sam Peter. That stopped him in his tracks. Peter's very flat-footed. A right hand there that made Toney jump around, got him off balance.
We mentioned that Hasim Rahman had landed a few more right hands. Well, there's a nice one by Peter that gets in. Than people have been landing against Toney. And Freddie Roach, I think Toney's trainer even concerned about it. But in this fight, Peter having a hard time getting that punch in. And part of it is he's not quite as quick with his hands as Rahman.
A lot of balance shots here. Now, Peter is starting to line up that right a little more frequently, and it's starting to find more of a home. Counter-punching by Toney, but all of a sudden, Sam Peter looking a little sharper. He's straightening out that right more. It's not as wide or looping as it was earlier.
Toney, though, counter-punching pretty well off the ropes here.
There's a right hand by James Toney, a lunging right. Didn't get full impact, wasn't flush.
This fight is really going to turn on whether James Toney can continue to do this over 12 rounds or however long it takes. Against Hasim Rahman, he won the rounds he won very decisively, but couldn't compete for the full 12.
And this is typical James Toney as a heavyweight.
Watch your heads, guys. Watch your heads, Toney.
A slow punishing job, the accumulative effect. Just trying to wear Peter down.
The headline, I'm sorry, Steve. The headline in this fight is the jab of James Toney. It's just better even than I would have imagined it being in this fight. You can't miss with that punch.
And he's finding a hole. And the right eye of Sam Peter getting extremely bloodshot. A lot of those Toney punches are finding the eye. Now the jab, a double jab by Peter setting up the right. There's an overhand right by Peter sending Toney back to the ropes, but this is where Toney is so good, but he gets off the ropes. Peter misses with the right hand. Counter punch, uppercut by James Toney. Peter coming on. Crowd getting riled up. Big right hand by Peter. Uppercut by Peter. This is a Peter round. Nice inside right hand by James Toney, but Peter coming back. Now Peter using all 257 pounds to lean on Toney, and that's a lot of weight that can wear you out. Right hand by Toney on the inside off the ropes. It will take a lot to put Toney down, who hasn't been down since 1994. He got rocked there.
Best right hand Peter's landed.
Toney, a little discombobulated, but just momentarily.
Oh, boy. Good guy. Good guy. Very good, James. Hey, James. You find the combination of the rope beautiful, okay? Don't stay there too long for me, okay?
Well, Sam Peter was waiting for the power shot to land. Now, there's a straight right hand that got in. He took his time with it, and it came after a left hook to the body set it up. And there were signs, a good left hook on the inside by Peter. There were signs in that round that two things happened. The power of Peter's took some effect, and the punches were shorter by Peter. See, there's a right hand that didn't have maybe a home run ball written on it, but what he did was he adjusted so he could land the right hand and just touch him, as they say in boxing, and it worked for Peter. Close round, really, but the last part was very effective for Peter.
Sam Peter may not have to hit James Toney all that flush to hurt him.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It really is.
great second half of the round by Sam Peter. We'll see if it was a breakthrough round or just an aberration. So already here, only in round 4, a pivotal moment.
Get your hand on. Let him go, Jim.
And while the Toney jab, nice hook by both men. While the Toney jab continues to land, the question will be, will that be enough to win him these rounds if he doesn't throw a lot of those other good counter punches?
Work great by James Toney.
Peter wants no part of him when he's on this rope.
I was just going to say that. James Toney trying to sucker him to the ropes. Try to work his magic off the ropes. There's a hard jab by Toney, but one and done.
Peter is straightening out that right hand. He missed with the last one, but he is straightening it out. A smile from Toney. And I'll tell you what, the nose of Peter now is bleeding for those jabs by Toney.
Yeah, he's starting to slice him up a little bit, Toney. There's that jab again. The blood now coming out of the right nostril of Sam Peter. Overhand right by Peter. Countering right hand by Toney. Again, good two-way action. More sustained of an attack by Peter than we saw against Klitschko.
You want to hold your breath when Peter throws some of these big punches, and you wonder, is Toney going to get hurt by this? I mean, it's palpable because you think, okay, is this the one that's going to maybe make a difference? But
double jab by James Toney, but Toney, who hasn't been down since '94, never seriously hurt. And you are right. Almost every big right hand by James Toney takes your breath away. The backhand there by Peter.
It's been a good round for Toney, even though Peter's had a couple of moments with some big shots. A jab of Toney has bloodied his nose, and even some good body shots and counter rights by Toney.
Toney aiming for the body, blocked by Peter. Going for the chin, blocked by Peter.
Now, if I'm James Toney, nice right, I wouldn't throw a left hook from the outside and start off the action with that. That's when he gets countered.
Toney looking over here after that little flurry.
Maybe he heard my comment. I don't know.
He does have good ears.
Wow, interesting round.
The crowd into it. They are loving it.
Lean your head back, Baba. Lean your head back.
Breathe in. Suck in. Suck in.
Okay, baby? Looking beautiful.
When Sam Peter can get the right hand in, as he does that one. Now, that wasn't delivered perfectly, and Steve, as you aptly pointed out, maybe these punches aren't going to be perfect for Peter, but he's better off landing them. However, there's that move of Toney countering with the right hand. When Toney makes you miss, he makes you pay. And 4 or 5 punches missed by Peter, and there's the work on the inside by James Toney, and that was when he looked over at us.
Yes.
He almost got hit, though, when he did it.
Be careful, James. Those short hooks and uppercuts on the inside, that's vintage James Toney.
Pick him up. Hands are free, hands are free.
The counter right by Toney, which he's landed so much in these years as a heavyweight, and of course before that as well, but it's really become his signature move as a heavyweight. It's such an effective punch.
Right hand by Peter. The first one connected, the second one missed.
Hands are free.
Oh, wow! To the top of the head of James Toney, holding onto the ropes for support. He may be in some difficulty here. He backs up. He felt the power and the wrath of Sam Peter here in round 5, and a long way to go in the round.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
Over 2 minutes left in the round. James Toney steps back, takes a big, deep breath.
And here's where Peter has had criticism. When he had Klitschko hurt, he didn't follow up well enough. Will he be able to follow up against Toney? We'll see.
Hands are free. Don't hold on to his head. Let him go, James.
He may be letting the moment pass.
Get your hand
Where's
out,
the
Sam.
activity from Peter?
And Toney getting his breath back by tying him up, regrouping, flashing that jab, and it looks like he's cleared the cobwebs and he's back to business, James Toney.
Steve, that might be the hardest James Toney's ever been hit as a prize fighter because it's the biggest man hitting him, and he was stunned, and look, he's back.
And then he looks over at the Peter corner with disdain. And he has to be frustrating Peter.
Take your hands up.
As you look at the press row scoring, 2 out of 3 have Sam Peter.
Wow, I've got James Toney winning 40-37. That's interesting scoring to me. Okay.
Carlos Arias, Orange County Register, Doug Fisher, MaxBoxing.com, Steve Springer, LA Times. Clubbing rights by Sam Peter. His calling card, his trademark, then he goes to the body. That's the busiest we've seen Sam Peter in a while.
This is clearly his best round in the fight, and will be one I will give him. But I thought those previous rounds, for the most part, belonged to Toney.
Yeah, James Toney, of course, a master at stealing close rounds towards the end. Left-right combination into the body by James Toney as blood comes spewing out of the mouth of Peter.
There are going to be a lot of plots and subplots in the next several rounds in this fight.
Final seconds of round 5. A difficult one early on for James Toney, who really felt the punishing power of Sam Peter. Maybe hurt for the first time in his career as he backpedals and stares Peter down. Sam will have none of it.
Early on in the round, James Toney able to land this beautiful counter right hand. That doesn't move Sam Peter. And a little later on in that round, this would be a right hand. And the key here is it landed on the side of the head. I think it affected the equilibrium of Toney. Then another one landed. Why he held on to the ropes, I have no idea. That really made it more difficult for him to defend against Peter. Where that right hand landed, to me, was the key because it created an equilibrium problem. And then later on, Sam Peter again with the same right hand, getting that shot in. Those are close to being illegal blows, but I don't think they are by Sam Peter. They're just barely in the position where they can be legal. And also doing some good body work, Peter. His best round of the fight.
Now a clear indication, based on what we saw with the press row scoring, a very difficult fight to judge.
Apparently, yes.
Round 6, scheduled for 12. A WBC heavyweight eliminator that, at the outset, is a very entertaining fight.
See, those are beautiful jabs by Toney, and with all due respect, I just think it's hard to ignore how many of those he's landing.
Now Toney going for the home run with the right hand, but it didn't phase Sam Peter.
Stop, break. Next deep breath, Fernando. Sammy, when you hear break, you got to stop punching, baby. Come on.
Peter has never been down, pro or amateur, limited amateur career. Quick report from Jim Gray.
Steve, in the training room before the fight, Raul Caiz told James Toney, hey, if you turn and he's punching, that's a clean punch. If you back your head into it and you're turning away, that's your problem. If he hits you in the back of the head, that's his problem, and I'll take points. There's a very fine line between what's going on here, but Toney was warned before the fight, don't turn as he is punching you because that's a legal punch them to the back. Steve?
Thanks very much, Jim. Toney's punch is very purposeful here. Some twisting right hands that landed to the head of Peter.
And you almost get the feeling he's doing a little damage to Peter. There's a beautiful right hand by Peter.
There may be a bit of sense of urgency here for James, perhaps for the very first time, and this is his reaction. He's trying to knock Peter out.
Get your head out of his face, Samuel.
And that was one of the scenarios we discussed before this fight, that if Peter does feel the power of Toney feels the power of Peter, he would have to actually go after him. And that was a left hook to the body.
Body shot by Toney. Then a straight right hand to the head by Toney. He snuck that one in. Peter's probably saying, where'd that one come from? A laser by James Toney. A minute to go in round 6.
Now, this is a round in which more punches have clearly been landed by James Toney. I think that's a fair statement. Will someone like the couple of very powerful punches by Peter?
And a big right hand to the head by Toney. And it's Toney on the ropes where he is so effective. And Peter may be running out of gas. Look at this series of shots by Toney. And now Peter, fatigue, leaning on Toney.
Nice right hand there by Peter on the inside. Let's see if that turned the tide at all here.
20 seconds left of the sixth as Peter running out of gas midway through. A right to the left ear by James Toney. Back to the jab, Toney. But you know, it only takes one punch from Peter.
Hey, Toney looks a little gassed right now, too. Wow.
But for him, it's from throwing punches.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Come on, son. Here you go. How you knock your feet, bro? Nice run, James. That's the way you work that body. Now here, this guy's getting real tired out there, okay?
Stamina is going, son.
James,
You gotta...
when you go under...
Well, James Toney throwing multiple punches. There he jabs downstairs to the chest. That's to set up the right hand. There's that counter right hand that is so effective. And that one, I think, got Sam Peters' attention. That's the first one that I think really made a difference in terms of power for Toney. And later on in the round, then the combination punching of Toney becomes a factor. And again, that counter right hand. So nice round for James Toney, but also a round in which he took some big shots.
Damage developing under the right eye of Sam Peters. We enter round 7. That jab just continues to mess up the face of Sam Peters. He's had a bloody nose. Now something happening underneath his right eye.
We should point out that Peter predicted a 4th round knockout of Toney to win this fight. Well, we're obviously well past that. And we're right in those rounds, Steve, where for both these fighters, the issue of stamina and resiliency starts to come into play.
And both, particularly Peter, beginning to show signs of fatigue in round 6.
I just find I am consistently fascinated. James Toney, who has come so far up in weight in his career, stands in front of a heavyweight like this and exchanges punches. And we must say, this James Toney, like the one against Rahman, does get hit a little bit more.
Midway, Peter for Arias and Fisher. Springer has it even. Al, you?
I'm different. I've got James Toney winning 59-56. I just think he won most of those early rounds.
James Toney stepping back, looking over at us again and smiling. Midway through the 7th. Peter tries the clubbing right again, but Toney wisely rolling with it, so it had no effect.
Both men slowing down the number of punches.
And now James Toney opens up. They have really slowed it down. There's that jab by Toney. Toney dancing around a little bit. More leg movement, foot movement by Toney. We've seen it in a long time. Now he backs Peter into his own corner. Peter going to the body. Clubbing right, but it was a glancing blow.
Hands are free, gentlemen. Hands are free.
Glancing to James would have put us in the hospital.
Yeah, precisely.
All right, stop. Break. Nice and relaxed. Deep breath. Deep breath.
We approach 30 seconds left in the 7th. But you're right about Toney. A remarkable story. Started as a 205-pound high school quarterback. Went down to 160 to start his pro boxing career.
And you made a very interesting point. If he had started at a higher weight instead of going all the way down to 160, would his career have been a little bit different? Would all these conditioning issues not be quite as dramatic?
It even raised his eyebrows in the fighter meeting.
Yeah. Oh, nice right by Peter.
Yeah, that got Toney's attention here at the end of the round.
Close round.
Well, there are not too many athletes who've been through as many incarnations as James Lights Out Toney. It's truly been an extraordinary journey. Call him the incredible expanding 3-time world champion, Al.
From all the way from 160, making a stop at the cruiserweights after light heavyweight, and then finally ending up at heavyweight. And the one thing that's been consistent all the way through is the fact that his technique has never left him.
All right?
World titles at middleweight, super middleweight, and cruiser.
Come on. Give me a deep breath. I will. Come on. Yeah, boy. Deep breath. Okay.
So the amazing metamorphosis of James Toney as we move on here at Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. A very interesting fight, living up to its intriguing billing. Round 8 scheduled for 12.
James Toney's problem may well be that he just can't hurt Sam Peter. Now, the way James Toney would have gotten him, nice hook, would be if Peter, in fact, does run out of steam, and then a tired big man can certainly be hurt even by smaller man when he throws a lot of punches.
Straight right hand upstairs by James Toney. Right on the jaw of Peter.
These rounds are having the same pattern. Toney starts out very fast, and then Peter comes back later in the round.
Peter's got to be careful. He was adjusting his trunks, and right in the middle of it came a right hand by Toney. And it landed.
All right, stop, gentlemen, stop. Break. Deep breath.
Again,
deep
the
breath.
stark
Come on.
difference in their experience. Right hand by Sam Peter.
You know, James Toney gets in trouble every time he throws that left hook when he's not against the ropes. In the center of the ring, he should just put that punch in mothballs because he's getting countered by Peters with the right hand. But it's so out there, he can hit him with the hook, he wants to do it. This round, much like the last several, Toney starting off fast and then Peter coming back.
Big right hand there by James Toney, getting a rise from the crowd, but it didn't really budge Peter.
One thing James Toney is doing is making more of a commitment to the body work than Peter, and let's see if that has an impact as this fight goes on.
Let's see also if he goes back to the old style James Toney where he just pecks and uses angles, rolls his shoulders. We're seeing more power attempt punches by James Toney here. He's trying to end this on one punch, but that's Sam Peters' MO.
Don't push his head down, Sam. Come on now, babe.
It could be that James is tired, he's running out of gas, and he wants to get this over with before it's too late.
I'm surprised Toney is coming to Peter as much as he is.
Yeah, me too. Usually doesn't do this nice holding. He's tying Peter up.
This round's so reminiscent of all the others, and the trouble for people judging is, do you like the first minute and 20 seconds by Toney or the last minute and some by Peter?
Deeper.
Toney, a great inside fighter, but we saw that earlier on in the fight. We're not seeing that as much here as the fight progresses.
Close one. Oh.
Yeah, nice left hand followed by a right hand by Peter. First the left by Toney, but now it's Peter jumping all over Toney at the bell.
Come on, don't fuck it.
That is a tough round to score.
Okay, JC. All right, 10 times. All right, now let's go. That round is too close for me now, okay? I want you to pick it up a little bit with the jab. Now here, don't wait on him, all right? All right, you be first, okay? Every time he tries to come to you, I want you to meet him. Hold your ground and meet him with that hard jab, okay? All right? If you put the hook right hand behind that, it's over, I'm telling you.
Big exchange at the end of the round. The left hook lands perfectly by Toney, but Peter comes back with his own right hand. Now, you can't land a better left hook than Toney did, but I said it early in the round. If he succumbs to throwing that left hook, Steve, he gets countered by the right every time in the center of the ring, and he really can't afford that.
Toney comes out deep from the corner to meet Sam Peter to begin round 9. Nobody better to this point at slipping and blocking punches than Toney. And he's shown over the years he can take a punch, but as Freddie Roach said, as he gets older, it adds the weight He gets hit more, and we're seeing that tonight.
We are, against a fighter who's not known in truth for his amazing accuracy or his activity. Oh, combinations from Peter. We haven't seen that, well, ever.
Yeah, we pointed that out at the beginning. That has been a fault of his. And that's a rarity.
Hands are free, gentlemen. Hands are free.
Not seeing as much of that rolling device, that turning device with Toney's shoulders, so he doesn't take the full impact. And to also hide his right hand, so you don't see it coming. We're not seeing as much of that particular James Toney here.
Jab again of Toney getting in, but Peter going downstairs to the body with that left hook.
You think Toney's making a mistake in that he's almost trying to emulate Peter. He's trying to fight Peter's fight.
Well, and it's
to some degree.
Yeah, and it's not that he doesn't land those punches, but he puts himself in harm's way, and he's sometimes getting countered. And when you're facing a big puncher like this, that fight can turn. This is a very, very, very tricky fight in terms of how it's judged and how people perceive it.
I wouldn't want to be a judge tonight for this one. Dick Flaherty from Massachusetts, Alejandro Rochin from Mexico, Gail Van Hoy from Texas. On the hot seat, right hand to the head by Peter.
Big uppercut by Peter, but you know, Toney landed like 5 punches, 6 punches there, and Peter, oh wow, what was that?
That's illegal, that's what that is.
I think a point will be deducted.
1 point.
Yep.
Don't fuck around. 1 point.
Raul Caiz says that's a no-no, Sam.
Don't do that again. Come here.
And that could be critical.
Shake hands.
Very bad mistake.
Don't fucking play games, either one of you. All right, let's go. Box.
Some colorful language there by the referee. As we continue round 9, that's frustration, don't you think, Al?
Yeah.
And that's what Toney does to you. And it's starting to seep in on Sam Peter.
Very important, because this was a close round that Toney might have been winning by a little bit, and that point certainly turns it.
And again, Peter is just looking for that one clean punch right now. You're not seeing combination.
I know. Don't bend your head like that.
They're now really starting to try the patience for Raul Caiz. Oh, right hand there by Sam Peter. And James Toney clings to Peter to stop the punishment.
Stop in about 2 seconds.
You can't be giving up rounds. This is the 10th round coming up. You can't be giving up no more rounds. Listen up. Don't let him out hustle you. You understand? Dig down, babe. Dig down. Be smart. Use the left hand. Use the left hand. Go to the body. When he's in close.
Early in the round, Peter actually almost a shoe shine kind of amateur combinations type situation where he just throws a bunch of punches. Not very effective, but I don't know that I've ever seen him do that in fights that we've seen. And then later on, an odd move. Now, Toney not really using his head. Well, he was using his head a little bit there, and that's probably part of why Peter did that. And Toney drew a foul against Sam Peter. A clever veteran move.
Double semi-rabbit punch.
I like that. You just created a phrase, a double semi-rabbit punch.
Thank you. He kind of earmuffed. Well, Freddie Roach felt that Peter's best punch is the overhand right to the back of the head. An illegal punch. And he was very concerned, but felt Raul Caiz Sr. was a capable rep and would stay on top of it.
Toney, as in every single round, getting off to a very quick start. The danger in the way Toney's fighting this fight is when you let a fighter do better in the second half of the round. Judges tend to remember that second part. It's not appropriate, but it happens a lot.
Pops Anderson, Cornelius Poza Edwards in the corner of Sam Peter, urging Sam to not get outworked, out-busy by James Toney. He's got to be busier. Right hand there that got the attention of James Toney, almost knocked him off balance. Peter jumps all over James. James slithers away, back to the ropes.
And let's give Peter credit. He's throwing a lot of punches here, and that's what he should be doing.
He listened to the corner. He takes their advice, and he's doing exactly what they told him to do.
He had Toney in some difficulty. He threw a lot of punches. Now, how will that impact how he fights the rest of this round? Let's see.
Nice and relaxed. Deep breath, deep breath. Ox. Watch your heads, guys. Watch your
Halfway
heads.
through the 10th round, scheduled for
Hands are free,
12.
gentlemen.
WBC heavyweight eliminator for number 1, and to be the mandatory challenger for Oleg Moskaya.
Three good shots there by Toney. You really need to pay attention in a fight like this because you have to look at what's landing, how many of what is landing. And Toney has come back pretty well after that difficulty in the middle of the round. So he's throwing and landing a lot of punches now.
Big overhand right by Sam Peter. Again, smothering James Toney. Toney trying to fight back off the ropes, but Sam Peter is getting the better of him.
And those were excellent left hooks to the body by Peter. Here we are in round 10, and you know what Sam Peter's showing us? He still has plenty in the tank. But this is a tricky round again because those two great outbursts by Peter sandwiched around a full round in which Toney did well. It's very tough.
Sam Peter getting a second win, fighting in bursts, but effectively. Because he looked kind of gassed a few rounds ago. And now Peter at 257 pounds looks like he's in better condition than Toney. Well, America's Fight Night's going to be busy over the next few months towards the end of 2006. How about Diego Chico Corrales versus Joel Casamayor coming up October 7th in the trilogy fight? Victor Chinin, Glenn Donaire. We're looking forward to that one. Interesting matchup for Corrales-Casamayor in light of the disputes and controversy of the first two. WBO heavyweight champ Sergey Lahovich will defend his title against Shannon Briggs. Lahovich looked so impressive in the win over Layman Brewster earlier this year. And then in December, Miguel Cotto will be on the card along with Antonio Margarito. We're really looking forward to that.
That's a nice calendar for the rest of the year.
And there is WBO heavyweight champ Sergey Lahovich, one of the 4 heavyweight champions from the former Soviet Union, and clearly an interested spectator here tonight.
While the winner gets a fight with Moskaya, certainly Lahovich is looking at one of these as a possible future opponent. Now we're into round 11. The only other time Sam Peter went 12 was when he lost to Vladimir Klitschko. How will he handle these championship rounds now?
A championship round in a non-championship fight that feels like a championship fight. Oh, big right hand, whipping right to the head by James Toney. So let's see, how much is left in Toney's tank. James Toney trying to summon up the energy for these final 2 rounds.
So much time was spent discussing, speculating on how these fighters would react in these later rounds. And I don't know that we have had any clear-cut answer either way, really. Both men have still remained pretty active. But then again, doing it in spurts.
And speaking of clear-cut, there is absolutely no way to figure out how these judges would have this. It is certainly not clear-cut.
Yeah, I think we can see some wildly divergent scores.
As we have pointed out throughout, a fight that is just terribly difficult to judge.
All right, stop. Sorry about that. Break. Let's go. Box.
A major sense of urgency for both fighters, but particularly for Toney, where the clock is ticking. He's 38 years old. This could be his last hurrah. Sam Peter looking to prove that he can beat a fighter of James Toney's caliber, go from contender to champion.
And that scoring by the, I have it 96-94 for Toney, as did one of the ringside scorers. And one other one had it slightly closer but an edge for Toney. So they have it a split decision right now for James Toney.
Less than a minute remaining in round 11.
And you know, Peter not throwing that many punches in this round.
And the defensive master shakes his head at Sam Peter. He said, forget about it, Sam. But let's see if Toney counters. He smiles.
He's waiting to throw that right hand again. You can see the wheels turning. Peter, right here in round 11, may look back at this and say, I just should have been a little more active in this round. Toney hasn't been that active, but he's done more than Peter, I think.
Hands are free.
Yeah, at this point, Toney could be just eking this round out.
Break. Nice and relaxed. Nice and relaxed. Nice and relaxed. Come on.
But you know, no matter what happens in this fight, I'll say this for Sam Peter. His technique got a little better. He has thrown more punches than we've seen in a lot of other fights, so there are positive signs for him no matter what happens.
And a heavy right hand, straight, short, crisp inside right by Sam Peter. Yeah, there's no question he's looked improved.
All right, son. Last round.
Last round, baby. It's time for everybody.
Here you go. Here you go. Okay. All right, JT, now here.
Dig down, babe.
Yeah, let it all hang on, my brother. Keep the jab pumping. Keep the jab.
We're going to take this round big time, okay? You understand? We're going to...
Yeah, put right here together for me, okay? He's dead. All right, he's dead. Beautiful combination. Let's go. Now let's finish this championship of the world right here, right? This is everything at stake right now, son. All right? Let's go to work. JT, put him on his ass. Put him on his ass.
In other words, Freddie Roach to James Toney knocked Sam Peter out. It's too close to call.
Been a great fight. Don't fuck it up, gentlemen. Come on now. Box.
Oh boy. They touch gloves for the 12th and final round. Both think they need a knockout to win.
And you know, that was uncharacteristic. Freddie Roach, not a rah-rah guy so much, but he knows what's at stake here.
James Toney's career future at stake. Big right hand by Sam Peter.
Again, the left hook in the center of the ring by Toney, and again he's countered by a right hand. That's been his one serious mistake in this fight.
The counter puncher getting counter punched.
Yes.
Left hook there by James Toney. Didn't phase Peter. Who's ahead? Who do you have ahead at home? Little right hand stuck in by James. Peter with a jab. Doesn't follow it up. There's press row scoring. It's that close. One has it even. 2 for Toney.
I'm with Doug Fisher. I've got it 106-103 for Toney, but clearly, as we pointed out, many close rounds. And, of course, the point deduction, a big one in round 9 against Sam Peter.
If this goes to the cards, you could almost argue for either one. Wouldn't be surprised. Either way.
Let's go. Box.
Midway through the 12.
It's been volume by Toney and maybe bigger punches by Peter. That's really the way you almost have to look at this.
Toney pushes him back with the jab.
Stop. Break. Nice and relaxed. Nice and relaxed. Let's go. Box.
And that's pretty much what we expected, Al.
It really is. We didn't think James Toney could knock out Peter unless he got very tired in the later rounds, and Peter has not to that extent. Sam Peter's landed some very big punches. James Toney has once again proven he is a heavyweight. If he can take punches from this man, and he's landed some big ones, he can take any heavyweight punch.
The final countdown, 45 seconds. Overhand right by Sam Peter. Toney invites him in.
Another close round here in the 12th. It's redundant, but it's true. And Sam Peter finishing stronger.
Yeah, he is.
Right now than Toney.
Appearing to be in better condition, too, than James Toney down the stretch. Sam Peter measuring Toney out. Final 20 seconds of the fight. Toney going for the home run there with the right, but it was tied up by Peter.
And this was fun.
An entertaining fight. Final 5 seconds. And that will do it.
That's it.
So who do you think won this fight? This is going to be very interesting to hear these judges' scorecards.
How you like it? Highlight time. Highlight. You show. Yeah, you show. I'm positive. You show. You show. Come on, baby. That's all you want. This is you, baby. You work. Good work, baby. Good work. Beautiful work. One shot at me. Oh, good. Work. Oh, you look good, James. Look great. Back on the foot out there.
That's the easy fight. That's right.
Put your hands in the air, baby. You're the champ.
So now we wait.
Here we go.
Sam Peter slowly pacing around. Ivalo Gotsev, his manager. And don't forget, later we'll have the results of Showtime's best upset as we continue to commemorate our 20th anniversary season here on Showtime Championship Boxing. And we'll introduce the nominees for our next category as well, Showtime's best fighter. So stay tuned for all of that. So Sam Peter now standing by for the results, as is James Toney, the three-time world champion. Is James Toney going to be that much closer to a shot at a heavyweight title? Tony's wife, Angie, anxiously waiting. One of his daughters also, Morgan and Jasmine, are the two daughters of James Toney. And this is a very, very tense moment in the career of James Toney. So I think we're ready. Let's get it up to our ring announcer, Jimmy Lennon Jr. for the verdict.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of action, we have a split decision. Here are the score totals. Judge at ringside, Alejandro Rochin, scores the bout 116 to 111 in favor of Samuel Peter. Judge at ringside, Gail Van Hoy, scores the bout 115 to 112 in favor of James Toney. Judge at ringside, Dick Flaherty, sees the bout 116 to 111 in favor of the winner of the WBC title elimination, and he is now the NABF and IBA heavyweight champion, the Nigerian Nightmare, Samuel Peter.
Extremely emotional moment for the Nigerian Nightmare, and how disappointing is this for an uncharacteristically silent James Toney? When was the last time he was silent? He was silenced tonight. It's almost in disbelief, and some very disparate scores.
Yeah, that's the thing, of course, we'll take away from this. The big margin on two judges' scorecards for Peter, and a 3-point margin for Toney. So that's a lot. And remember, a point deducted in round 9, which even further adds to the drama. James, you can almost see what's going through James Toney's mind, thinking at 38, my last chance at a heavyweight title might have slipped away.
So Sam Peter prevails, which should make some very interesting post-fight reaction with our Jim Gray in the ring. Jim?
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Samuel, congratulations to you. What were you thinking as the announcer Jimmy Lennon was reading those scores?
Well, I give all glory to the Almighty God who gave me this fight, because it's not easy to be the champion of his house. Because when Pharaoh go to Egypt, God said that, you know, Pharaoh stabbed Egypt, Pharaoh stabbed snakes on his house. That's what same thing happened here in California. I'm from Las Vegas, Nigeria, Africa. I come here in James Toney house, and I win this fight. I give all glory to Almighty God.
Did you feel as though you were the more active fighter in this fight?
Yeah, Toney's a great champion, he's a pound-for-pound boxer. To overcome a pound-for-pound boxer, 2-time world champion, it's not easy. Tonight, I'm very, very grateful. I thank God, I thank God.
Your corner didn't seem to be so certain as to where you stood going into the last round, and they kind of were emphasizing a knockout. Did you feel as though you had to knock him out in the last round to win?
When I throw the punches, I know he's a rock. He's a solid guy. He took all the punches. I said, okay, I gotta work with my jab. My corner told me I should work with my jab, and I'm gonna win. He's a strong guy. He's a strong guy.
Samuel, were you offended by some of the things that James Toney said to you during this week and during this promotion?
No, this is a fight. This is Showtime. I thank Showtime very much, because if not Showtime, nobody could have known Samuel Peter. Showtime, they put this fight, they give me, Showtime, they give me every time, I lost to Klitschko, they still take me. I win in other games, they still take me. I so much thank Showtime, because without Showtime, I couldn't be here today. You
will now fight Oleg Meskeyev, and do you feel that you are ready for that fight in a championship opportunity?
This is a championship fight. I'll go anytime, any moment. Just go there to overcome him. I win.
Let's bring James Toney in. Congratulations, James. If we can speak to you for just a moment, James. James. All right, as they exchange a hug now here after some anxious moments for just a moment. Hold on. James, let me ask you a question.
Tony. What's up?
What was your feeling as the scores were being read?
I won the fight. I knew it took them long. I knew it was a problem. But that's okay. I'll be back. I ain't no quitter. I want everybody around the world in this arena saw I won the fight. You saw where he started. I made him miss a lot. I counted him. He was the more effective shot. But hey, this is boxing. I didn't lose this fucking fight. Everybody just saw this. All the haters up there, I ain't lose this damn fight. I went under all the clean shots. I was more effective. He hit me in the back of the head a couple times, but I shook it off. Everybody talk about he a big puncher. He an all right puncher. I've been in with better. You know what I'm saying? But I was able to shake it off and come back with my shots.
Did anything that he do, did anything tonight surprise you in what he did?
No, it ain't surprised me at all, because I took everything away from him. I took his power. He talking about he coming at me. I'm not cut or anything like that. I'm not bruised up. He cut, he busted up everything. How the hell you win a fight when you looking like a goddamn monster? Looking like Larry Holmes, ugly as hell and shit.
Let me ask you, has anybody hit you harder than Sam Peter did tonight?
Yeah, Marky Sosa. Look, I ran back. These guys, see, they're punchers. This guy was taught to fight. You can't teach nobody how to fight.
Do you think this was a hard fight to score? Because it was very difficult, I thought, for Al and for the judges ringside. They kept saying, the press scoring that we had was kind of all over the place. Do you feel that this was a hard fight to score?
No, I wouldn't hard for us to score. If they look at the damn fight, if they were a boxing expert like they said he is, they'll see that I landed more effective shots.
Okay, Freddie Roach was kind of urging you going into the 12th round to knock him out, that he felt that you were behind.
Well, still, he said, pick up pace a little bit and get on him. And I did that. And I did everything. I won the 12th round. But hey.
James, you're a 3-time champion. You won a heavyweight crown for just a moment.
Yes,
and now what do you do? You're 38 years of age. Where do you go from here?
I'm 38 years young. I'm not going to see everybody trying to force me out the boxing game. I'm not old. You know what I'm saying? I do my thing. I'm not Larry Holmes. I'm fat and out of shape. I heard what you said about Larry Holmes and Teddy Atlas last night. But you know what? Y'all some haters. Y'all couldn't fight that long. I ain't had no longevity like me. But I'll be back, Jim. I'm going to sit back, talk to my promoter, Dan Goosey, and look, this is not over. We're going to protest this because he did not win this fight.
Do you have any more respect for him now after the fight than you did seemingly before?
I have no respect for no one. You got to kill me to get respect. It ain't happening.
James, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Everybody from Detroit, Ann Arbor, Los Angeles.
All right, Steve, let's go back to you now.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. James lights out Toney, obviously very upset at the decision. Has Sam Peter turned out the lights on Toney's dream of winning the heavyweight title? Peter takes the eliminator, makes himself the #1 contender. James Toney hearing it from the crowd, but Peter the one who lifts his record to 27-1. Toney drops to 69-5-3, loses for the first time since when? 1997?
Yeah, it's amazing.
The end of a 16-fight unbeaten streak, and indeed, Al, a breakthrough night for the Nigerian Nightmare, now just one step away from heavyweight championship glory.
Yeah, it really was. Now, I will say I had the fight scored 115-113 for James Toney, and I think part of the issue that he may have, and we got some issues in the ring.
Uh-oh, look out. A melee in the ring. Toney is not done yet. He still has some fight left in him, and now he is cordoned off wisely. They want to get Peter out of the way.
That was simmering to a boil as James Toney thought about all this, and that's unfortunate.
And now Peter is whisked away.
You know,
that is smart.
I thought James Toney won this fight 115-113 because of the volume of punches he threw, and I think part of this ire is due to the fact that it was a 116-111 decision on both those scorecards. I think that big margin is probably what will gnaw at him even more, and in truth, that big a margin to me seems a bit inappropriate. But let's say this about Sam Peter. He upped his game in terms of technique, and he did stay active throughout the 12 rounds, and that is ultimately what got him this fight.
And now Sammy has left the building.
Yes, boy, quickly.
He exults in the dressing room. The celebration begins, but a night of major disappointment and upset for James Lights Out Toney. Sam Peter has done it.
And intriguing that the big puncher, the man that people thought would head to a heavyweight title match because of his power, does so by a decision. And waiting now, Oleg Moskayev.
And is this a guy, Sam Peter, who could reignite interest in the heavyweight division for the fans?
Well, you know, you hit it at the beginning of this broadcast. Individual matches are what will fuel this division to see if they are good matches.
All right, Al. Here's what happened in the ring when that little skirmish broke out. I think he's going to go after Peter's manager. We mentioned him earlier, Ivalo Godsev, who he's had some beefs with earlier in the week.
Who formerly was involved with Toney as a manager, so they have a history together.
There's Dan Goosen, the promoter for Toney, in the light-colored suit. So I guess Peter had already left the ring, and now he's going after Godsev. He's the one he threw the glass of water at the press conference to build up this fight.
Godsev also the manager of Sergey Lahovich, one of the heavyweight champions.
At the top of the screen, the person in question. And now they finally simmer James Toney down. So I guess he figured if he can't beat Sam Peter, why not try to beat his manager? Let's take a look at the scoring, how it went for this WBC heavyweight eliminator, James Toney versus Samuel Peter, and there they are.
You know, I think the interesting thing is, as we pointed out, the large discrepancy. We said that during the fight there could be a large discrepancy. I guess, and people will review it as they may, but that's a 5-point difference. And as I pointed out earlier, I had it 115-113 for Toney, so I was in between those scores.
So a split decision victory for Peter. Well, there's your press row scoring, and let's see how they had it all for Toney.
Yeah, and pretty much in the range that I did. And I think, and I've said this many times over all the years of doing boxing, what raises red flags and makes people more distressed about close decisions is when they're not close. Those 5-point margins for Sam Peter indicate that those judges were pretty far from what a lot of other people were seeing, which isn't to suggest they couldn't have given Peter the fight. It's a large margin.
So Sam Peter victorious tonight over 38-year-old James Toney. Peter 13 years younger, and now he's in a great position to go for the heavyweight title. And as promised, all your fans have been logging on to show.com to vote on their favorite Showtime boxing moments in celebration of our 20th anniversary. Every month, a new topic to choose from. Last month's category, Showtime's best upset. Let's take a look at the results.
Tyson versus Holyfield. Chavez versus Randall. Hearns versus Barkley. Tyson versus Williams. Tszyu versus Hatton. Curry versus Hunnigan. Now the winner with 34% of the votes, and your pick for Showtime's best upset, Tyson versus Holyfield. Few gave Evander Holyfield a chance when he faced world champion Mike Tyson. But in one of the best performances of his life, the real deal Holyfield surprised the world by ambushing and dethroning Mike Tyson.
So here is a jubilant Sam Peter being hugged by his trainer Pops Anderson. There's Ivalo Gotsev, who almost got it from James Toney afterwards, but fortunately they broke that up. So it's nothing but fun and laughter in that Sam Peter dressing room.
And it was another heavyweight, Mike Tyson, who dominated yet another category of our voting here at 20th anniversary, and an indication of how the Tyson mystique has kind of colored a lot of the voting, and people still have this huge fascination with Mike Tyson and had a great interest in what he did, because those were a lot of other great upsets, some of them could have broken through.